one thing I want to show on this application is if you're familiar with sort of Office XP or an Outlook XP, you'll be familiar with this look and feel that you see here. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and created a couple what I'll call user components. And these are designed to simulate, and you can see they're done here. This is at design time. They're basically are the equivalents of the same components that you'll find in Outlook, for example. So this is a folder type list that you might see in Outlook. This is using the Windows Forms, developed using the Windows Forms tree view control. This control here is simulates the Outlook message type view, and it actually data binds at runtime. So it's empty right now. Once I show you this at runtime, you'll see that it looks much closer to what the Outlook message list does. We have a new component that we've added in Visual Studio 2005 as a web browser control. But this component right here, again, you can see it developed at design time, basically is simulates the message preview that you'll find in Outlook. And the final one I have here is, this is using our tool strip type controls that I've showed before. This is a simulation of the Outlook sort of view selector control.
And these all ship with Visual Studio 2005?
The components that they're built on all ship with Visual Studio 2005. This right here is just a version that I've basically taken our tool strip component and added a couple items and put them in a vertical arrangement. Okay. So this right here is basically me creating a user control, if you will, or a composite control that leverages our underlying components. And that's
Will people be able to download your code?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
This is really cool stuff.
And as you can see here, everything I've shown so far is I created it using the designer.
Right.
Now, in some cases, I'll talk about when I get the app done, there is some code written behind to sort of support the runtime experience. And I'll talk about that as I pull these components together to build the final app here. I'm going to go over the toolbox again. And I'm going to grab a splitter container, and this is just a sort of a paned container that we have that allows you to have multiple panes that are separated by a splitter or resizable splitter. And I'm going to drag a couple of these in here. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and add this control up here. These controls are tool strip controls, and I'm going to add another one to this first pane here. I'm going to add 2. And now I'm going to go ahead and add this stack view component and the folder view that I showed you before. And I placed them on the toolbox over here. These are the same components I clicked on over here. I'm just actually adding them to my design surface through this mechanism gesture here. But here you see, this is the component I showed you before, and this is the other component I showed you before. This is the same component as you see up here. I'm going to go ahead and change some text here to say, and then change this to say mail, and I'm going to change the style here to small. So now you can see I've simulated sort of, if you're familiar with Outlook again, the Outlook type left pane look and feel. And we're going to do the same thing, drag another one of these tool strips into the middle. And I'm going to go ahead and drag the message list. And this is the component I showed you that said it works better at runtime. Effectively, what we have here, even though it's design time, once I put this component, this user control, if you will, on the design surface, it starts to act as if it's more in runtime. So you can actually see it filling up with data. And I'll go ahead and change the title here to inbox. And then I'm going to drag in the last component, which is the message view. And I'll go ahead and now run the application here.
Now, is the Office team really happy with you showing off how you can build Outlook in a few minutes?
Interesting that you say that. So we've talked a fair amount with the Office team about this. And one of the key things that we want to do is, and the Office team is not concerned about us being able to create this user interface. We obviously don't have a mail client here. You have to actually go ahead and implement the back end and talking to Exchange and those sorts of things. And that hasn't been done in this application. But in terms of the user interface, I guess they sort of view it with mixed feelings. They like the fact that their user interface is very popular and that people want to build applications like that. And they also understand that for the purposes of this demonstration, we haven't done anything to replace Outlook. We've just, again, the key point was that we want to be able to demonstrate. If you want to build an application like Outlook, you can do it. We haven't done it because we haven't done the heavy lifting in building an Outlook application is, or should now be, or the new bar is, that's actually doing the connectivity to your back-end system. It shouldn't be developing the UI. And that's the key thing that we focused on in Windows Forms is we don't want your heavy work to have to be building a user interface. And that's really what we're trying to demonstrate here is that it's easy to build a user interface.
Right.
And we understand your user interface may be sophisticated and professional like Outlook. The
Right.
tough part should be actually getting all the business logic in terms of connecting up to your back-end system or connecting up to your data that sits in a disconnected environment on your client. That's where you're going to be spending your time. You don't need to spend your time anymore trying to get your user interface to look just perfect. And a couple things I want to touch on in this application here is this middle view here is our new data grid view component. And this is an area where to get the look and feel that you see here, I did write some code. So there's about 50 lines of code backing this component here to give it this nice little sort of multi-column look and feel. This tree view component here has got the nice little green and blue highlights like you see in Outlook, and that was a little bit of code that I had to write as well. That's really the extent of the custom code that I had to write in building this application. It's about 100 lines of code. It doesn't talk to Exchange. It talks to my own mail system that I basically generated just to show this sample application here. But you're looking at an application that look and feel is basically the Outlook look and feel, has the Outlook look, and it's 100 lines of code in order to get that.
That's amazing.
And again, we didn't implement all the back-end functionality, but the thing is the key thing we focused on was getting that user interface and being able to develop that user interface without having to spend an enormous amount of development cycles to do that.